In 1923 Berlin, a woman walked into a bakery pushing a wheelbarrow full of cash. She had saved that money her entire life. One loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. But here's what nobody told you. Somewhere in that same city, a man was using this exact disaster to get rich. Your savings account gives you a feeling of safety. That feeling is exactly what destroyed the German middle class. Not all at once. Slowly. Then overnight. In 1914, a loaf of bread in Germany cost 0.13 marks. 9 years later, that same loaf cost 200 billion marks. That is not a rounding error. That is a 1.5 trillion-fold price increase in under a decade. Germany owed 132 billion gold marks after World War I. That is roughly $31 billion in 1921 money. More than the entire German economy could realistically pay. When Germany fell behind on payments, France and Belgium rolled tanks into the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland, and started seizing factories directly. Germany's response was to print money, enormous amounts of it, to pay workers to protest by doing absolutely nothing. That decision broke the currency within months. At the peak, workers were paid twice a day, morning wages, then a lunch break to spend them immediately, because by afternoon, the same cash bought less than it did at breakfast. Here is how fast the collapse happened. At the absolute peak in November 1923, prices were doubling every 3.7 days. Bread that cost 10 marks on Monday cost 20 marks by Thursday, and 80 marks by the following Monday. Now here is the part nobody mentions. While pensioners lost everything and savings accounts went to zero, one man in Germany was having the best years of his life. His name was Hugo Stinnes, and his secret was not brilliance. It was a single insight about what money actually is. Stinnes understood that paper marks were dying. Real things were not. So he went to banks, borrowed as many marks as he could get, and used them to buy factories, coal mines, newspapers, and shipping companies. Anything tangible. Anything real. At his peak, Hugo Stinnes owned 1535 companies. He controlled roughly 1/5 of Germany's entire industrial output. Newspapers called him the inflation king. Here is the trick. If you borrow money that is losing value, your debt shrinks on its own. Stinnes borrowed 1 million marks in early 1923 to buy a factory. By November, that debt was worth fractions of a pfennig in real terms. The factory still existed. The debt effectively did not. The people who got destroyed were the ones who had done everything right. They saved in cash. They held government bonds. They trusted the system. The crisis transferred their wealth directly to the debtors and the real asset holders. It was not just Stinnes. Anyone holding foreign currency, US dollars, British pounds, Swiss francs, could buy entire German factories for practically nothing. Some foreign investors picked up businesses worth millions for the equivalent of a few $100s. November 15th, 1923. Germany introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark. 1 Rentenmark equaled 1 trillion old marks. Hyperinflation stopped almost overnight. Not because the economy was fixed, because trust in the currency was restored. And here is the uncomfortable part. The German government was itself the largest debtor of all. The war reparations became easier to manage as the mark collapsed. The government quietly inflated away its own obligations. And ordinary savers paid that price. So what does 1923 Germany have to do with your money right now? You're not in Weimar Germany. Hyperinflation is not happening today, but the core rule has not changed. Cash sitting still loses value. Not fast, slowly. US inflation runs around 3% most years. $10,000 in a checking account loses about $300 of real purchasing power every single year. Over 10 years, that is $3,000 gone without spending a cent. $300 a year. Every year. just for holding cash instead of owning something real. Here's what you could do this week. Step 1. Open your bank app and check your checking and savings balance. Step 2. Figure out your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Step 3. Move anything above that into a broad index fund. You own real companies, real earnings, real assets. The boring modern version of exactly what Hugo Stinnes did. Not derivatives, not crypto, not borrowing to buy factories. Just owning a piece of the real economy instead of holding paper. The system is designed to erode the value of your cash. An index fund is the simplest way to fight that. If stories like this change how you think about money, subscribe. There is more coming.